Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Great to have you with us on the program today. Our special guest is Dr. Bonnie Ring. She's an author, psychologist, feminist, Episcopalian priest, spiritual director, and retreat leader and educator. She was educated at Vassar College and New York University with master's and doctorate degrees from Boston University with additional graduate study at UCLA and UC San Francisco. She's the author of the new book, Women Who Knew Jesus, and she joins us on This Week in America. Dr. Ring, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you.
I am really looking forward to this, and let's go back to where maybe this was sort of a challenge to put this book together a few years ago. You're in, as I understand, the first year of seminary school, and you've got a course on church history. And
yes.
You're given the assignment, compositions of 5 meditations on saints in the very early church. And you ask a question, you got an answer, you took a sort of a challenge. Explain that, because he wasn't real sure you could find 5 women who had an influence on the early church. And you took that as like, okay, let's see if we can find 5.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things is, I said to him, can I do all women? And he said, oh, sure. And then he backtracked and he said, well, I'm not sure I can think of 5 women who would qualify. And that just,
Yeah, you set out to prove him wrong. And
I set out to prove him wrong. Not just that time, but several times later.
Well, I'm sure. And because you did that, the book Women Who Knew Jesus really gives us a whole new understanding. And what kind of response are you getting to the book? Great.
Just terrific. Good reviews and lots of sales and opportunities to preach the stories and teach and lead retreats about it. So I'm very happy. This is for me the pinnacle of my career.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because I mentioned the number of years that you've done retreats, and there were questions, it appears, that came up. So that was sort of an impetus, too, wasn't it, in writing the book?
Well, it was. It actually was the impetus for writing the book. After 25 years of giving retreats on 6 women, the most well-known, I was invited to come back and do a second retreat, and I had always wanted to look at the other women. So at the second retreat, as I was, leading the group through the stories, I realized, this needed to be a book. And then once I decided to write a book, I had to add Mary, the mother of Jesus, as well, who I had not used in my retreats. She's kind of sacred property,
Yes.
And so that was my incentive. I had all this retreat information, lots of exercises that engaged people in guided meditations and in reflexive questions, and I put it together as a book that people can do on their own or they can do with small groups. They have the benefit of a retreat without having to leave home.
Yeah, and the book is Women Who Knew Jesus. The author is Bonnie Ring. The website is womenwhoknewjesus.com. The book's available all across the country. You can link on directly to Dr. Ring's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And it's interesting because you talk about the impact, the looking into the life of Mary, which you talk about in the book Women Who Knew Jesus, and what it's like. 1982. It's I believe it's Good Friday. And you felt you had a calling at that point. And then talk about that, and then we'll talk about how it took you a few years before you actually answered that calling.
Yes, I said no. Hell no was my first reaction. Hope that's okay.
That's okay. That's acceptable, yes.
I was sitting in church on Good Friday and minding my own business, waiting for the service to start, and I heard a voice say, I call you. And I looked around, and there was nobody else in the church. And I got very excited, but I also got very scared. I mean, the idea of going back to school, having already done, bachelor's, master's, doctorate. I was 42 years old in 82. I didn't want to go back to school, and I didn't want to change careers, and I didn't want to start my life all over again. And I said so to God, and I kept that up for about 4 years until there was the first national conference on AIDS sponsored by a Christian denomination, which was the Episcopal Church. and I was staff to that conference, and I started talking with one of the priests about my experience of a call, and he said, I think you need to take this seriously. I had said to God, I'll do anything else, but
yes,
that didn't seem to be enough. And I think the experience at the conference was such where I felt totally whole. My psychology part, my faith part, and my social justice part were all together.
Well, and then what? A couple months later, you're hit by a car.
Yes.
And this
you do
of
read carefully.
Well, yeah, because it's interesting how all of this evolves, and because you said up to that point, whatever I can do as a layperson, you've got it. Sign me up. I'm all for that.
And I did them all.
Well,
senior warden and membership chair and adult education, you name it.
But you still didn't feel totally you didn't feel fulfilled at that point, did you?
Well, I think it was I felt so fulfilled at the conference that I wanted to keep doing all of those things.
Yes.
That's where my yes came from.
And then you decided, okay, I'm going to heed the call, and you talk about that in the section of the book when you're talking about Mary, that and use that as an example where it's difficult, it's life changing, but I too had to answer that call.
Yes, and I feel a kinship with Mary, being told this is what you're about to do. You're about to bear this child. You're not even married, and she has all kinds of reservations, and then finally she says yes.
And it's interesting because in the book, Women Who Knew Jesus, and you talk about this, but for so many people, we think of Mary and we think of compliance, and that's pretty much the role that she plays in the story. And you make the case very well that she was so much more than that, wasn't she?
Well, she was. She was a feisty woman. And, when she had this conversation with Gabriel, she didn't automatically say yes. She wasn't the sweet, innocent and compliant that she's been presented as. I think she was very thoughtful and had her reservations and then made her decision and went along with it. And then later in Jesus' life, there's two stories that few people actually read that are in the New Testament. One is when Jesus was 12 years old. We don't know if that really happened, but it's a significant encounter between them because she was angry at him. He had not gone home along with them, and she had to go back to Jerusalem to find him with Joseph. And when she found him, his attitude was, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm in my Father's house. Because they found him in the temple.
Yes.
And, all she wanted to do was, give him a little boxing and that put his tail between his legs and take him home. And then later on, the reputation he was earning began to worry her. And so she came to Capernaum where he was teaching, and there was so many it was so crowded that she couldn't get in the door. So she sent a message saying that she was there and she wanted to see him. And he knew that what she wanted to do was take him home because she thought he was crazy. And he said, no, the people who are my mother and brothers and sisters are the ones who listen to God.
That's just an amazing story, and it's
in 3 out of the 4 Gospels, the 3 oldest Gospels.
Okay,
that story is
a question as I'm reading this, and I know it's been asked a number of times, why have this is the first time we're hearing some of these stories, and some people have said we've sort of had a hyper-masculine worldview of the relationship that Jesus had, his interactions with women. Have we had over the years maybe sort of a distorted view of that relationship?
We've had a very distorted view for a number of reasons. One is that the Catholic Church, in its veneration of Mary, eliminated some of the stories. They just don't talk about them. The second thing is that when Pope Gregory the Great in the 5th or 6th century was reading the stories of the anointings of Jesus before his death, he decided that all those women, and there were 4 different women mentioned, that they were all Mary Magdalene and she was a prostitute. And it wasn't until I did my 5 meditations that I learned that Mary Magdalene wasn't a prostitute. And, that really got me concerned that women who should have had a role model for centuries in Mary Magdalene, a courageous, bold confidant of Jesus, didn't know that. They thought she was a sinner that had been healed. And so this year, Pope Francis has just made her a feast day equal to that of all the apostles. That's how long it's taken.
Yes, centuries. And it's interesting because you portrayed her in a dramatic presentation. So you've sort of went into this with an open mind, or curious to see if the story that you had been told actually is true. And you're finding out you've got a whole different perspective. One of the things that is so nice about Women Who Knew Jesus is I'm sure you're getting comments that from women who see similarities between themselves and the women who knew Jesus, and they can draw from that, and that just makes their faith even stronger. Yes.
I'm doing a 2-day retreat starting this weekend, 2 Saturdays, and one of the goals is to help them see which one of those women are they most like, so that they will have a role model.
Well, and you've said that several times, and as I'm reading this, it's like these are role models, and up until the time of this book, who actually knew, but these are role models for women that are searching for people like that, for substance.
Well, you hear about the 12 male apostles, and you don't hear the stories of these women. In fact, Rick, until 1992, when the various churches agreed to a revised common lectionary, that means a Sunday set of lessons, at that time they added the stories of the women. Not until 92. And of course, by then I had graduated from the seminary, and I was teaching about the women who knew Jesus.
Yes.
But it's very exciting to me that you can go to church today and hear these stories.
Yes, and so long overdue. The book is Women Who Knew Jesus. Bonnie Ring, Dr. Bonnie Ring is the author. The book's available all across the country. Information at the website womenwhoknewjesus.com. You can log on to our website and then link on directly to Dr. Ring's website. It's interesting, and let's go back just a little bit. Time is going way too quick, but let's talk about the mores at the time, because if you were a woman, you basically talked to whoever your spouse was and family, and there really wasn't a lot of...
no one else.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of talk with other men.
So Jesus, in his fearless approach to women, one after another, totally violated the mores. He was, men were not supposed to talk to women who were not their wives or their mothers. And women approached him, and he approached women. The wonderful story of the Samaritan woman at the well. She was there to gather water when nobody else was there, and he pipes up and says, "Well, you give me some water?" And she looks at him and she says, "Why would you, a Jew, talk to me, a Samaritan?" Because they didn't trust each other. Right. Samaritans didn't keep the purity code. So he was quite assertive in his response to women, but he was also compassionate and caring and thoughtful. It's amazing to me.
The book is Women Who Knew Jesus. Bonnie Ring is the author, our guest on the program. And at the end of each chapter, you've got guided meditation, reflect on your experience. We talk about the similarities that people can draw from that. Questions to ponder, comments, conclusions. It really sort of it's an interesting read as you're going through the chapters, and then there's what practical questions you can ask and practical applications after you've read that chapter.
That's right.
That's why the book is so valuable and just receiving excellent reviews around the country. And actually, people are considering this like a new appraisal of Jesus' overall message, isn't it? Because he wasn't concerned about gender differences. He treated everybody the same way.
Equally.
Yes.
He treated men and women equally. And they were all part of his entourage.
What was this?
The Gospels were written by men, so they highlighted the men. But all of these stories are in all 4 Gospels. I mean, not every Gospel has all stories, but they're scattered through, and it's just a matter of highlighting them so that women can see that women were an essential part of his ministry.
In reading reviews, you're not getting like, no, she's misinterpreting, this can't be right. We're getting like, wow, this really is there. As you were doing the research, and it was years of meticulous research to put this together, what was that experience like for you as you're understanding, wait a minute, this isn't the way that I was taught, and this way, this message, the true message, really is going to be very impactful once I can get this out into the general public?
Well, I felt like I had to.
Yes.
I just had to. There are a few books about the women, but most of them don't deal with all of them and don't try to make some sense out of it. You know, that these women heard about Jesus and needed his help and sought him out. We tend to just focus on a few people. Most people know about Mary, the mother of Jesus. Most people know about Mary Magdalene, though they may not be accurate about who she was. Some people know that there were friends, Mary and Martha, whose home he visited often, and that's about it. But there are about 16 others.
And those are all chronicled in the book Women Who Knew
Yes.
Jesus. Bonnie Ring, Dr. Bonnie Ring, our guest on the program. The website is womenwhoknewjesus.com. You can link on directly to Dr. Ring's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And it's interesting as you're reading that, I'm sure this opens up sort of a look at ourselves. It can be, introspective. We see good things and we maybe see bad things as we're reading this, but it's a real
Absolutely.
learning experience, isn't it?
Well, I think Jesus was very accepting of people. He basically said God loves you no matter who you are or how you are. And so if we can learn to see our good side and our bad side, then we can grow.
And it's interesting because as I'm interpreting this, and I ask you if it's correct because this is your research and your interpretation, I get the impression that the women who knew him, who came in contact, that had this interaction, they all went away with the different people, didn't they, in a positive sense?
They were all changed.
Yes.
They were transformed. And I think Marcus Borg, who's recently died, is about the best person to speak of the transformation that Jesus had on people. They didn't go away the same. They went away with a new sense of their worth. They went away with a new sense of God's love for them and a sense that this man understood them better than they knew themselves.
And as I'm reading this, I'm grasping this equality that comes out of this relationship. He treated his followers, men and women, all in the same way. And boy, there's a real message there for all of us now, men and women, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. I did send a copy to the Pope. I don't know whether he read it.
Yeah, it would be enlightening. I hope that I have a feeling if he picked it up to look at it to sort of see, he would go like, okay, I got to do a few more chapters here because this is very enlightening. Unfortunately, the time has gone by way too quickly. The book is Women Who Knew Jesus. Dr. Bonnie Ring is our guest on the program. The website is womenwhoknewjesus.com. It's really an enlightening book. It's very well researched. Dr. Ring, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for writing the book, giving everybody a whole new perspective. And obviously from the workshops and the feedback you're getting, it really is life-altering for some people.
Yes, and that's what it's supposed to do.
Mission accomplished. Very nice job. With the
Thank
book
you.
is Women Who Knew Jesus. Bonnie Ring is our guest on the program. Once again, the website, womenwhoknewjesus.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly and get all the information. You're listening to This Week in America. Thank you for being with us on the program. We're back right after these important messages.